Hey, Juventini, welcome back to the All Juvecast, and this is episode 157 of the podcast. And joining me, I got my man Lewis. Lewis, how you doing?
Good. How about you? A little
Doing
late for
good,
the
man.
podcast
Doing
session,
good. Yeah, we've got a win to talk about. I mean,
by
that's the one thing. We didn't get to do the pre-match, and we all were joking about it at the All Juvecast team because my guest was scheduled to be Francisco, and the ones he's done haven't ended up so good. He said he was kidding around, said, "Oh, maybe that's a good thing, or maybe that's why Alberto was under the weather, so to speak." But no, yeah, I was a little bit under the weather, but we'll be back for the next one with the pre-match. This one, wow. This one was an ugly, ugly match, but we'll get into it real quick before we do. Just get the business out of the way. Everybody that's tuning in on audio, keep in mind that these podcasts are recorded live now, and you can be part of the discussion and joining us on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And we're going to have a lot of cool content that's going to be exclusive to the YouTube channel as well. So make sure you check it out. And everybody, please make sure you check out the sponsor, Striped Hearts Apparel. Proceeds go to charity, but some of it also helps support the podcast as well. And we got a lot of great gear. Lewis rocking the Marquisio from the original drop. We have Azzurri merch available as well. And we've got the Cinque Maggio stuff that just dropped today in anticipation of what's to come here in a couple of days. Always great moments to celebrate. And keep in mind, everything is customizable too. So if you want to make some alterations, we can make that happen. So check them out. Now, the match. Lewis, we had Juve and Udinese. And my God, we squeaked this one out, and it was a must win. So it's great that we did it, but man, Jesus, this took me back to the whole reason we wanted to move away from Allegri. Really, it felt like one of those matches. You know?
Yeah. It was basically. I mean, when we say that we do the Lord's work on this podcast, watching that game was doing the Lord's work. I mean, it was as brutal as it comes.
Yeah, it was tough. I have not walked away from one. This took me to my limits, man. Like this match took me to my limits on sticking around. First half, I mean, there's not a lot to really break down to. Like everybody that tunes in usually loves how we, break down first half, go through second half, whatnot. But like first half, we were so flat. And I mean, you could see it on the ticker there on the bottom there that Udinese breaks the deadlock in the 10th minute. And we were just asleep at the wheel, man. Like literally no communication from the back. It's laughable. They take one pass on a dead ball, and he takes one touch and hits this thing far post, and we're 1-0 down. And oh my God, man. Well, I had words to say, but they weren't good ones. But just losing it, and you always wonder, like, how is this possible, man? Like again, a goal that will, and this is what we've talked about a lot on the show. These goals, while we don't allow a lot, right, in terms of goals allowed for the season as a team in Serie A, but man, I'm telling you, it's the weight of these goals and how we concede them that just like hurts us the most, right? This allowed Udinese to really, really make things extra difficult for us with their low block. And Juve struggle so much with the low block. And we saw this entire first half. I think we had two decent chances. One was a Dybala opportunity, and the other was the McKennie header, which you would expect him to put on target at the very least there. But it's frustrating. We've got some of our live viewers joining in. Jonathan saying he almost turned it off on Bernardeschi. Pulled a Storaro almost there. I think the only thing that saved him from being as bad as Sturaro's on that trip up was the fact that Bernardeschi was at least at the last second able to locate the ball and pass it to a team.
Yeah.
Sturaro, I think, is still looking for that one.
By the way, this is not the first time Bernardeschi's done this year. It feels like he's done this 5 or 6 times.
Oh man, I know, it's so frustrating. And Eric, we know Eric's tuning in, and we know he's a big Berna fan, but he was traveling. Obviously, had a wedding to attend and whatnot, and probably a good thing. A good thing. But I'm sure he's seen the clip floating around about his boy. David saying, "Hey, what's up, David? Always a pleasure having you aboard, joining us, man. Thanks." So, first half, not a whole lot to talk about, man. Another just flat Juve, and struggling with the low block, and Udinese getting a lot of opportunities, and it's just frustrating, man. It's frustrating to watch. CR7 struggled a lot. Like, a lot of our guys just struggled a lot, to the point where even things that they're normally good at, they were having a hard time with.
Mm-hmm.
Quadrado, who's even usually very good on the 1v1s, wasn't even willing to really do a whole bunch. You know what I mean? Danilo, normally good at supporting. He wasn't really getting too involved or whatnot. The first half was just very, very poor. We needed a reaction. A lot of the reports came out after, too, that Paratici was giving it to the ref at halftime. Waited for him in the tunnel, and apparently just giving him the gears about no extra time added to the end of the first half or whatnot. And Udinese's president actually saying that that's what influenced the second half and these calls and whatnot, and saying that, obviously, as everybody sees on ticker, and they've all watched the game, this was terrible. This was a terrible match from Juventus. They pulled it together very, very late. I mean, and the foul that Quadrado drew is the one that the president was really going at, saying that, look, that's a foul actually on Quadrado and not on us. And then they get this free kick. And then we all saw that our future signing there, Rodrigo de Paul, wanted to do us a favor and help us out. So he's chicken wings it. And in all honesty, I think it was going in. I think CR had that one pegged if he doesn't stick his arm out. But that call, how did you see it? Because I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little bit surprised. Like, I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, I don't know if Quadrado is going to get that call necessarily."
Yeah, we got a little fortunate on that call. I thought it was kind of a weak foul to give, and Quadrado kind of runs right through him. So like, I thought that 50-50 could have went either way. But typically when that happens, they give it to the attacking player anyway, especially if it's close and around the box. The whole Juventus influenced the referee things. Udinese had like 7 or 8 chances to put that match away. So you know what? Like, there has to be some personal accountability there. I know they're a smaller club, but they could put that game away before that. But hey, even if we think it was right or not, I'll take the call because it sparked quite the comeback.
Well, there you have it, right? We get this free kick, and everybody's thinking the same. Like, no hopes are up. It's CR on a free kick for Juve. He hasn't been great for free kicks with us, and you're just like, man, can he do this? Can he peg this one? And then the second it hits off of there, and you see him raise his arm, and you're just like, oh my god, it's PK. Quick, easy decision. Calls the PK. I'm like, wow, there you go. We'll take that. CR steps up, and my gut, I hate it, but I was thinking, man, the way things are going for us in this match especially, maybe he doesn't bury this. Like, I'm thinking, man, maybe he gets stopped. Like, I hope not. I pray to God he doesn't.
He's usually good for one PK miss a year, and I was like, this is it. This is where it's going to happen.
He steps up, he buries his thing. Nice, low and hard. Keeper actually froze up a bit, almost like he couldn't make up his mind where he wanted to go. And CR7 slots home, grabs the ball, runs it to half. Literally, like 5 minutes later, Rabiot does very, very well to stay on his feet, continue the play on in midfield, and runs it forward. and plays a crossover, and CR7 with 2 defenders in there, he gets to this thing. He puts it on goal, and it literally squeaks through, and I absolutely lost it. I cellied this goal so hard, and then I laughed hysterically immediately after I was done celebrating, because I'm like, this is so brutal. Like, so brutal.
Yeah,
But we needed it. We needed it so bad. We needed this thing so bad.
I think my neighbors for at least a block or two could have heard me yell when that goal went in. Just because I really thought that game was going to end 1-1. Like, I thought the penalty, that's it. Like, there's no chance. But man, did we ever need a goal from that? And it was ridiculous. And then as soon as the full-time whistle blew, not only was I buzzing, which is weird to think about because I'm buzzing after a crap performance for 80 minutes, but I couldn't stop laughing as well because I was just like, how the hell did they pull this game off? Like,
it's ridiculous. And I said at the end of the game, I mean, there's not much to talk about. Like, it was such a flat, poor performance. And a lot of the guys were so bad. Even Ronaldo, you could have made an argument to take him off the pitch because he was that poor for everything leading up to that, and the free kick and everything. And it's crazy because you have the people that are saying, well, look what he did. You don't know football. You can't take him out. But at the same time, it's like, well, hindsight's 20/20, man. And the performance was so bad. And again, the other thing is he had a play where we were on this counter and he misplayed a pass and he literally sulked, turned away from the play, and the ball was in the opposition's feet and they just walked past him with the ball. Mm-hmm. And that was the moment that, like, it just drove me crazy because I'm like, man, it's okay that you fucked up the pass. Don't quit. Do not be the guy that quits.
Yeah, it's the love-hate relationship with a player like Ronaldo, because he basically just feeds off of pure emotion, whether it's anger, it's frustration, he literally lives off emotion. So he does things like that, and you're like, F this guy, I want him out of the club. Like, his attitude annoys me. And then he bangs in 2 goals 10 minutes later, and it's like, it's a weird dynamic. And it's incredibly frustrating to watch sometimes. I mean, like, the same way, when I saw him throw his hands up, I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I think, the only reason he stayed in that game, I think, was because Dybala was playing so deep that naturally you had to bring another number 9 on just to get another person in the box. Not that that's Dybala's fault. There's no creativity in the midfield. He has to come back that deep. But it just that to me summed up Juventus in the last month or so. That reaction, just poor attitude, no direction, the players frustrated. And I think we saw that in the match. For 80 minutes.
No direction 100%, because you had McKennie that was slated in the lineup as being the pivot next to Bentancur. And for whatever goddamn reason, McKennie ended up playing the whole match up Bernardeschi's ass, like way out left there. And I'm like, man, this doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Like, stick to the rigidity of a 2-man pivot. Like, he looked like he was still playing it when he was playing that hybrid position. But then you have Berna there. So I was completely lost on that. And it looked like a mess. And McKennie was pretty much useless because he wasn't even occupying the proper space.
Yeah.
And the fact that continued for so long and Pirlo was not making any adjustments, like, nothing changed for that whole half of watching that. It's like, what do you need to, like, slap you across the face to be able to see that, right? Bentancur is just, a lot of the times it was just so slow. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, man, you're killing the tempo. But we've been saying this all along. So, Pirlo, of course he's got faults, but these guys too, there's not enough there for me, man. I still say, and if you look at the stats too, if you look at this team's stats, it tells you that it's not just a coaching problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you put this all together, and then again, you look at how the goals are scored. That goal that we allowed in this one, I don't blame Pirlo for. I don't blame Pirlo for that.
Well, it's on the players. Yeah.
You guys are all out there and they're all standing around and nobody's picking this guy up. Like, where's the communication? We have more than enough veteran presence on that pitch at that point in time, and that still happens.
Yeah, you could also argue too. Like, I mean, the ball goes right through Tech's hands. It's not like he necessarily was 1v1. I mean, he hits an angle. And he's right there. I mean, it's just bad all around.
Tech is at the back for this whole thing. That guy is standing there. And you don't think to make the shout and organize this guy. These guys have their back to the play and they're talking. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, pick it up. And again, if you look at the names that are on the pitch, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
The last thing I expect from us is the amount, and we're talking about, we have 4 matches left? And we are making mistakes like this and allowing goals like this. Mm-hmm. Start of the year, I can understand that. Now, man, these players, man, and I've said it for quite a bit this time, our leaders haven't been up to it.
Yeah. I think about this a lot the last month or so, but a lot this season. Remember in Sarri's exit interview when he reportedly told management these players are uncoachable? And not that Pirlo's been a perfect manager. He has a lot of faults.
Absolutely.
But you look at some of these players and you wonder to yourself, like, how are they professional football players? Some of the mistakes that they make, I mean, Benevento, Arthur, the back pass, Porto, and Bentancur, back pass, they all freeze like they did against this on the second goal against Porto. I mean, it's been like this all season. The handball that Rabiot gave away against Fiorentina was awful. Awful. It just... Yeah. They repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again. And, part of that, I think, does come down. There are some things that the coach does that you say, like, hey, Ronaldo on the wall against Parma probably shouldn't have happened again. Like, that's on the coach. But at some point, you have to look at the players and be like, hey, these players, mentally, they've checked out. And I don't know if it's the fact that the season ended in August last year and they've been playing for over a year and a half. They had no break. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's they're just old, they're washed up. I mean, it might be a little bit of both, but mentally they've checked out this year. And particularly the leaders. And, like Bonucci is not a captain. He showed that multiple times this year. I mean, Chiellini is old, he's not really fit. He's not there as much. Buffon is, the backup keeper as of now. I mean, he's kind of a locker room guy. He's not on the pitch all the time. And your next captain, Dybala, he's missed most of the year. So you're really walking around with no leaders. Your next leaders are Cuadrado, Sandro, Tech, Ronaldo. And those guys aren't meant to be your leaders. And even, I don't want to be too critical of Dybala, but if you notice when he got subbed yesterday, he did a little bit for 60 minutes. But then as he's walking down the touchline, he scoffs and rolls his eyes. It's not like he played like prime Messi for 60 minutes and got subbed. I mean, he had one shot on goal and played most of the game in the midfield.
Yeah.
It's just like some of these players, I think, and this is maybe down to coaching, maybe with someone like Max Allegri or Antonio Conte, they're more fiery, they're more on top of you. Sarri is known for just going after players all the time. Maybe that's we know the inside of what Pirlo's dynamics like, but he seems like a more silent manager. Maybe those are the mistakes that got covered up by those other coaches because they were so meticulous and they rode their players harder,
Yeah. And that's what I honestly thought because, I mean, I was never expecting Pirlo to be that guy. Mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting him to be that guy. So what I thought would probably be Tudor being that guy.
Yeah.
The guy that puts them in line and puts them in check, But honestly, I failed to see really anything from Tudor come through this squad. Yeah. And there's also like a lot of rumors that the dynamic amongst the coaching staff isn't there.
Yeah.
And that it's essentially almost like Pirlo and Baronio against all.
Yeah. it almost feels like, and I kind of wondered this at the start of the year, even though like, it's exciting to see someone like Tudor come in and, be a part of the club again. But you wonder a little bit if how much of a say Pirlo had in his staff, because he's not an experienced coach, so he wouldn't know who the staff. And it seems like maybe he staffed one of those guys, but like Tudor could have just been like, Agnelli or Paratici being like, hey, in case this fails, like you're here, you know, and
Yeah.
that is a weird dynamic to put in there.
Now, while I never expected Pirlo to be that guy. But even if he wanted to put down some type of discipline, he really hasn't had the opportunity for a lot of the season because of injuries and COVID and stuff. So, and this is why I've been saying for people, like, it's really, really hard because any type of competition for starting spots, any type of disciplinary thing is like you're handcuffed, because for most of this year we've had no options. January we were rolling and we did quite well up until Dybala left, and that's not because of Dybala, it's because of the option. It's being able to rotate two out of your top three up there, Morata, Ronaldo, and Dybala. The second you have to rely on a young guy like Kulusevski playing out of position, extremely out of position, by the way, you're going to suffer, and then it's just a trickle down effect. Then we lost Artur for a while, right when we were kind of getting things going, and Bentancur is Mr. Inconsistency. Rabiot gives you flashes of like he did in this one on that second goal, and then like I swear to God, it was like the next play. He made the most boneheaded decision I've ever seen in my life, and I'm like, that's Rabiot for you.
It's really crazy. Like, we're all very critical of Bonucci, right? And deservedly so. He hasn't been, the Bonucci that we knew, at least since he's come back from Milan. He's definitely regressed, right? But there was a period last year before the lockdown where he was very, very solid. And then after lockdown, him and De Ligt played every game and he regressed. And even this year, if you think about, Bonucci, when he's missed games, he's had to come back early because Demirel or Chiellini can't stay fit, or De Ligt gets COVID. It's because you only have four options back there. I mean, same thing, Danilo and Ronaldo have logged some of the most minutes in Serie A in the last two seasons. It's absurd.
Yeah.
That's another thing, like we've talked about some of the players' attitudes, but I wonder how much is just like mental fatigue for some of these players, because they've been logging in a lot of minutes. They don't get to rest at all because they can't rest, because of injuries.
Yeah. There's a lot of question marks around this team, even our training. Just the amount of muscular injuries continuously, year in, year out. I mean, I'm questioning everything at this point.
Yeah.
Like with this side, right? They really need to figure things out and get to work. Got some comments coming in here from AJ. Maybe Pirlo isn't tough enough and it's more of a discipline issue. I mean, absolutely, it could be. I mean, this has not just been a Pirlo thing too, because even in the last season of Allegri, I started questioning if these guys are just too complacent. The spine, the core of that team that have been around for a while, if it's just time to bring in some guys that are more hungry, and just hopefully bring out the best in those guys. And if you think back to the year we had Spinazzola and Cancelo in there, when Spinazzola came in and started playing, the next time we saw Sandro, he was a bit slightly better Sandro, and there's a couple phases there. Spinazzola came in and did well, and it offered Sandro rest, So the management continuously leaving us handicapped at positions, and Sandro going through seasons without coverage is crazy, But then this season, our coverage wouldn't matter because we didn't have enough coverage because we had so many injuries.
Yeah, and I think part of it is a little bit of not just complacency, but there's a little bit of arrogance there. I think that in the last 2 to 3 years, this club, you hear some of the way that even the spine of this team speaks. I always joke around that Chiellini gives that famous "We are Juventus" speech before like a Champions League game. That means we're gonna lose. Because it's like, what does that mean? Nothing. It means that you've lost 12 finals. Like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, and you look at that, and sometimes I wonder if they're just like, well, we're Juventus, we're down 1-0, we'll overcome it. It's like, well, that doesn't always happen. It happened. We got lucky this time around, but it didn't happen at Fiorentina. It didn't happen with Benevento. It didn't happen with Torino. Like you can't just approach a match and think, well, because we're Juventus, we're going to pull this out. It's like, no, if we have to show up, we have to treat it like it's any other big club. And that comes down to the spine. It comes down to the management. It comes down to the manager himself. I think that AJ does bring up a good point, which is the fact that, Pirlo, you do have to ask, what's is he disciplined enough to, get these players and really, discipline them? Our Amazon doc's going to be fascinating because to see what behind the scenes of this season is like, I mean, I can't wait for it. Like, I want to know like what went on behind the scenes because it's a total collapse.
I'm almost scared to put myself through it. Christopher coming in here saying it's been a crazy year with players missing due to COVID at the drop of a hat too. Juve was forced to put bandages everywhere. Essentially, I mean, yeah, it was really, really just a difficult year. And when you look at, Inter and them winning it this season, even in their bad matches, they minimize the amount of errors. Just like they started doing what we used to make a living off of. And that was even in the matches where you suffer, you play poor, you pull it out. Us this year, even in the matches we weren't suffering, couldn't get the result. It's a massive, massive contrast to what we're used to. And that's just the way she fell for us. And this is why I was saying for a lot of the time I was defending Pirlo was because honestly, until this last final little stretch, we weren't getting outplayed. We weren't. We were controlling matches. We were getting a lot of opportunities, and the guys just weren't putting it in the net. Now, though, however, towards the end, he's finally losing me because of the stubbornness on the 4-4-2. It's just the fact that he saw what was good. He had a couple other working options that showed us more, and the fact that he wouldn't go back to them, and he just continuously slams his 4-4-2 out there, to me is just so frustrating. And when you get a performance like this and you're absolutely not surprised, and you've seen it over and over, I mean, it's time. And if they have an option, and if it is Allegri, Allegri is the best option available right now, unless there's more news that we don't know about, that's somebody that wants to make a move or alter. You know what I mean? But for me, Pirlo, we know that when Paratici and whatever addresses the press and whatnot, it doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. It doesn't mean anything really. Those are just whatever they're going to say to media. For me, Pirlo, it doesn't continue any further.
Yeah.
Lewis, your thoughts?
Same thing. I mean, I tried to defend Pirlo just because, obviously love for the player, but the fact that he really had no experience, tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, try to not be too critical too early, right? But just when you look at it, when we did the pod before the season, previewing the season, I said that Juventus would lose the Scudetto. Like, the Scudettos is ours to lose. And when I look at this season, Murder were good, they were consistent, but Juventus lost the Scudetto this year. And they lost it at Fiorentina, Benevento, all those bottom sides. And it's one thing to finish second and, play well and show progress. But this team not only dropped points to teams that they never should have. I mean, one game out of like a couple, okay. But they should never drop those points, and they've regressed in terms of performance. You can't justify it. So if Allegri is available, get him. At least with Allegri, if you're if you're not going to win the league next year, at least you have a coach that has a winning record that backs up, that justifies, hey, we can give this guy time, because the big knock with Sarri and Pirlo is that they weren't up for the job. I mean, Sarri had never won anything before Juventus, so I think that whether you thought that he should have been sacked or not, I think Max Allegri is the best available coach.
Well, that's what we're going to get into. Allegri's return. Now, the rumor has it that it's going to be a Sir Alex Ferguson type role, where he has control of transfers and whatnot as well. Like I said, right now, out of guys available that we know are available, hands down, I think he's easily your top option. Are there concerns though about Allegri come back? Because I'm still seeing a lot of posts and a lot of fan reactions saying, do not go back to Allegri. Think back to 2 years prior when we were in the same boat playing just as brutal. And, even though we won that Scudetto quite easily as well, just brutal football, no growth, no anything, and just a drab Juve, right? And not doing anything special in Champions League. So it's tough. I mean, the argument's there that, if he had better players, they should have stayed with him. They should have brought him back, or brought him the guys he needed, given him a little more control or whatnot. However, he's also the reason some of the dead weight that everybody likes to complain about, even some Allegri lovers, he's part of the reason some of those guys stayed. So I can understand a little bit of hesitancy if all of a sudden he's given a little bit even more freedom in terms of guys coming in and coming out, right? In terms of him as a manager, has anything actually changed? Because it's easy to say that, yeah, he sat out and yeah, he went on Sky and he did a great interview. Well, we heard so much shit that we loved, even from Sarri in his pressers at the start. We heard everything great out of Pirlo as well, but it didn't translate for both those guys. And again, it's just like Allegri's got to prove it. But the thing is, you're going to have to commit again, and we're going full circle. And do we start getting into bad habits? Are we better off to look for something completely new? It's really, really hard, man. For me, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not against an Allegri return, but I am a little bit concerned about it as well. What are your thoughts on it?
I think unless, which I don't think will happen, even though there's a report late tonight that Zidane was going to resign if they didn't win any trophies this year. I don't really think that's going to happen. So I think that if you're going to sack the manager, part of the problem with Juventus is the last time they sacked Allegri, they downgraded, and then they downgraded again. So I think that the thing is you have to get the best available. Now, that would be Allegri. As Allegri himself, those first 3 years, very, very good football. To play devil's advocate, you could say, hey, when he asked for 2 ball-dominant midfielders after Cardiff, and we got Douglas Costa and Bernardeschi, instead of the midfielders, you could make an argument and say, hey, Beppe Marotta, Fabio Paratici, they never really replaced Pogba, Vidal, Pirlo, Marchisio. They went Khedira, aging Marchisio, Pjanic, to then Matuidi, Emery Chan, Aaron Ramsey, Adrian Rabiot. They keep getting worse in terms of players. So there is a little argument there. I think that, the one thing that Allegri gives you that makes me sold on him is that he has a record. Like, he's won trophies. You think even the last decade, he's won 6 Serie A titles. He's been to 2 Champions League finals. The football wasn't perfect. The results are there to say, hey, if he has some idea, like he said on Sky, of how to take the good side of Italian football and take the new modern game and mix them, kind of like Roberto Mancini did with the Azzurri. At least he has the profile of a manager where you can back and you can invest in that. And I think that's it. He provides stability.
Yeah. Matt, our friend Matt Milana coming in here saying after changing 3 managers, it's normal that management would look for stability. Allegri looks to be a safe choice for a long-term managerial position. And yeah, I mean, I talked about it in my article, my last column for Bianconeri Zone. I said it's just really comes down to them starting to make the right decisions, and they need to start creating stability. When right now you have absolutely everybody under fire and in question, Paratici, Nedved, Agnelli, Pirlo. This is a nightmare. When when your entire roster is essentially up for grabs other than 3 players.
Yeah.
This is insanity.
And I'd also like to throw out on the management part of it. Juventus are so used to yes men, but what if like Juventus actually I don't know what behind the scenes happened with Sarri, but what if Juventus actually like gave Sarri players that he could use, right? Like Juventus so often what they do is they just buy players and just give them to the coach. Remember, that was Conte's infamous problem with the club, right? Like his BS speech, about the 10 euro, 100 million, or 100 euro restaurant. But you do have to wonder, like if Agnelli's going to shake things up and he's going to give Allegri a larger role. I mean, I would be curious to see what he would do. This is someone who knows the club at least. It's not like he's handing it to someone who's foreign to the club. He's handing it to someone who made a big mark on the club. So I think that it's intriguing. I don't know if it guaranteed works. I don't know if it guaranteed wins us the league. I mean, I think that the gap between us and Murda isn't huge, but at least if you don't win the league next year, you have a little bit of stability to build on because that there's a manager there that can win, right? And you have time to rebuild properly.
Yeah. That's essentially where we're at is you got to get stability, even if it isn't Allegri. Matt Milana puts out here the only better option would be Zidane. For the sake of the discussion, I'm just going to put it out there, Zidane or Allegri. I had this as a poll question as well and said, hey, if the two were available for this Juve currently, who do you take? 56% decided the victory and 44 went to the loser. And I'm going to ask you, out of the two, who would your personal choice be and why, Lewis?
It's tough. Probably pick Zidane. I just think that he's, you can't really deny a coach that won the Champions League 3 years in a row. And his second stint, I think, has been even more impressive because this Madrid team's not very good. If they win the league this year and they get in the Champions League final, it's literally a miracle. I mean, they don't have a world-class player. Like, they don't have a Ronaldo, the Bellingham anymore. Like, this is pure tactics. And Zidane is also kind of like Allegri. Like, he's very pragmatic. People say that Zidane plays modern football, like high-intensity football, but he's very, very – he takes care of both sides of the ball, and he knows the club. So if you're gonna go but really, you can't go wrong with either choice, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think you're not going wrong in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, that's a tough one. Also, it's always got a weird feeling when you go back. When you go back to something.
Yeah.
It was weird even for the Azzurri with Lippi, even though I love Lippi's my all-time favorite. It was weird, and it wasn't right. It was like you're trying to force going back to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just even with Juve, I mean, but he did manage to get a title when he came back, but it wasn't quite the same. So it's a tough one for me. I probably slightly edge Zidane.
Last thing on this topic, before we shift, I do sometimes wonder if Allegri kind of like knew this was going to come full circle. Like, I wonder if he be sat around for 2 years, kind of hoping that it would come full circle. And if that's the case, I'd be curious to hear that if he got rehired, if that was the case, and maybe he really does have a plan. Who knows? It's all hypothetical. But
well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Maybe. Now we're gonna shift gears and talk about CR7. I had a friend send me a message and just said, I'm really going to miss the CR7 era of Juve when he's done and he passes. And it made me think. And I don't think he expected my response. But I have certain feelings about the CR7 era, but I want to get you talking about your thoughts on it and whatnot. And I know you wanted to talk about CR7, and it's always a hot topic since he's joined the club. So go ahead, Lewis, and then I'll give my thoughts after.
It's one of the few players that I think actually has enjoyed watching CR7 for Juve. I think the fans get what the management did wrong, and they just kind of blame it on CR7. Like, it's not CR7's fault. The management decided to sack Allegri and replace him with Sarri, and then replace him with Pirlo, or not bring in midfielders. And I know, look, I'm not going to defend some of CR7's performances this year. He's missed a lot of chances. He's looked a little old. But if you look at his numbers, just strictly a numbers perspective, he's top of the league in goals. He's 28 and 29 games. His numbers for Juventus is 99 goals in 121 matches. That's the highest goals per game average in Juventus's history, which is wild to think about. So I just think that, like, you look at the CR7 era, he lived up to his expectations. The team itself, though, the project they built around it, never caught fire. Like, they never really tried to play a style that suited that, and then they never really backed it with players to do it. You could say, like, hey, the deal they gave him, they probably shouldn't have. But again, if that deal was going to cripple the club should have known that, like, that's again on them. I just think that, we get confused with what the management did wrong. We just blame it strictly on the player. And CR7 is not perfect. I mean, we talked about him, throwing his arms up during the games. His attitude has been kind of like a foot out the door. But man, I mean, this guy, like, he's remarkable to watch. And some of the individual performances, I mean, and again, I'm going to get some hate for this, but CR7, if this is his worst year at Juventus, right? Like, his goal per assist ratio this year is higher than our next best player's best season at Juventus. It's crazy. So it's just like, I think that, like, in perspective, like right now, everyone's sour on it because it's the turning of the page, like the project's trying to move forward and they can't hold on to the wages. I think that's a totally fine argument. But then the argument that, like, he didn't live up to it or he's been, like, overrated, the numbers disagree with that. And I think that, I don't know, I just think the fans have, like, kind of overlooked this period and not really enjoyed having a great player because the management has fucked it up so much.
Yeah, my thoughts are this. I mean, the first year was it was great. It took so long to, like, just wrap your head around the fact he's a part of Juventus. And every year, though, we had these hopes, we had these expectations or whatnot. But the part that's frustrating about this era for me, and it leaves a sour taste in my mouth, and it really sucks because he's one of the best ever. And the fact that we should easily be celebrating the fact that he joined Juventus and played for Juventus. And the numbers he's put up are incredible. The guy's at 99 now. It's been 3 seasons. He's tied with the ball for 100, and the ball has been with us for 5?
Yeah.
So it's insane, his numbers. He's done his part, but the part that will always have a sour taste in my mouth in terms of this is that this era, it's been one of the softest Juves I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In my time of watching them. And that's the part that stings the most, is that, like, we had this guy. We couldn't back it up. And, when a guy asks me or just makes a statement like that says, I'm really going to miss the CR7 era when it goes, for me, it's like, man, we just really, really wasted this, and I don't want to think about it. And that's a goddamn shame, because you've literally had one of the greatest.
Yeah.
And you literally just shit the bed on it. And yeah, we made a mess of it. We made an absolute mess of it. And it's a shame. And it's not because of CR7 that I don't really I won't be looking back at this era as something incredible. It's like, it's going to be a shame. It's going to be a shame that we couldn't piece it together better, that management, kind of rushed through everything. And you bring in a guy like that, and then all of a sudden you create a coaching carousel, the whole thing, it never made sense. And now even we're going to do a rebuild, whatnot, but you're going to keep him along. It doesn't even make sense for him. So all the rumors now that are swirling around about him wanting to leave, I don't doubt it. Why wouldn't he? Why would he want to stay at a project that's got no direction?
Yeah, it's literally it's like this. They bought CR7 with the mindset that they were going to win the Champions League. They didn't. So then they fired their coach and decided to hire a coach that's going to need 2 or 3 years to build them to whatever level they were trying to get to. And he had never won on that level. And and then that imploded. So then we go to the next guy who hadn't done anything. And you just keep going down and down. I won't miss the era, in terms of the teams, but man, if you're out there watching and be like, hey, Ronaldo's not a great player, he wasn't a great player, I think you're pushing an agenda. And I think that's, I think he's held up his end.
Yeah, he's held up his end. I've got my frustrations with him, but again, it's not just him; it's the entire team. They are literally they're so soft. Mm-hmm. It's just so un-Juve and just to have no fight, no heart, and there's been very few players, that I've seen that in this season, and yeah, with CR, and to play devil's advocate too, if you look at the stats this season, and the goals and the clubs that they're being scored against, that's a little bit on the softer side too. And again, we do have to factor in the fact that the play is designed around and for CR too. The amount, he's always out there, he's not going to get his subs, he's taking the PKs. It all kind of evens out. And this is why, I'm not necessarily I'm pissed off that we wasted it. I'm also not fearful though of what's next after CR7.
Yeah.
People can't act like all of a sudden Juve's not scoring goals. And here's the funny thing too. Here's the funny thing is amidst all of this, 9-year streak, Juve never had the Capocannoniere.
Yeah.
And the year we have the Capocannoniere, we're not even close.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's, there's a lot of arguments to be made against CR. He's not a perfect player.
There's sacrifices. That's all.
Yeah. It's, he's old. I mean, they signed a 35-year-old, or was he 34 when we signed him? It makes me, you think about Dybala not being fit this year. What could it have been if we would have saw Dybala and Ronaldo fit for 3 years, right, together? It's unlucky, and you just you wonder. I don't think we'll lose CR and we'll lose all of our goal scoring ability. We'll find talent around that. It's not easy to replace, but we'll figure it out. We will.
Yeah.
I do think though, if Juventus is going to look for top talent like Erling Haaland's, Paul Pogba's, yeah, it does, unfortunately. I do think that there will be a little reservation until they get their head straight. I do think some of those, it will be a little bit harder to attract bigger name players for a year or two.
Yeah. Yeah. For those listening on audio, Lewis was just laughing at Georg's comment there on CR also takes the free kicks. Yukio coming in. Can you name 3 or 4 players that proved to be part of the project other than Kielo or Dybala? Honestly, I'm not even so sure that both of them make it now. Like in terms of guys you can't move, it's a really really short list. Delict and Chiesa easily on there for me. In the midfield, I'm not even tied to anybody, man. Maybe McKennie, maybe. And it's like even that now is like I think everyone's fair game, man. Honestly, like it's pretty wild. But the thing is, like in terms of Dybala, you can't go into next season without like CR and Dybala. Like you need one out of those two. The other thing is too, I'm set that I think Dybala's going to stay this season and he's going to leave Juve on a free and it's going to be a disaster. That's going to be a disastrous thing that's going to end up happening. And you know what? That sucks. But there's 2 parties involved, the club and Dybala, and they're both kind of, it is what it is. I mean, honestly, if we look back into the history of events, it's really no shock, no surprise. If we just look at the relationship, the past couple of years, not surprised at all. Chiellini, man, it pains me to say this, and I know that the rumor's been swirling about him wanting to stick around another season, but I just don't see it. I really, really don't. It pains me to see it. Absolute legend. I love him. I absolutely love Chiellini, but I can't see it. Lewis, guys that you would lock into on Juve.
I'd probably throw Danilo in there. He's been pretty solid this year. I mean, he's at least like a piece of a back line.
But to the point of not taking an offer, should it come in?
Yeah, I guess that's true. It really only be Chiesa and De Ligt. I think those are the only 2 that really are salvageable. I mean,
yeah. I think everybody's really, really fair game.
Can go.
And Matt's coming in with a question. When CR7 leaves, do we need to go sign a popular name not to lose social media's attention? I think this is part of the problem. Missing out on guys, maybe not with that type of marketing flair. Just signing these guys on something outside of what happens on the pitch. Yeah. You know what I mean? And not saying that CR7 falls in that, just using social media attention, you know what I mean? And just that kind of, it just needs to come back to building your team on the pitch and having it make sense. Don't worry, the marketing stuff will always, it will handle itself.
Yeah.
But if you're picking players specifically for exposure in certain areas, holy Christ, that's concerning.
Yeah. And Matt, the other thing is that we can't afford the popular names either. So
yeah. Hey, if we don't get top 4, that deficit goes to 300 million euros. So yeah, let's get that top 4. Yeah. Oh, Blue starts sweating now. So.
Yeah.
Rabiot or Bentancur? Having to choose one of these. So there, our all Juvecast team chat was pretty lively, and I woke up this morning to read this debate going on about who to choose, and I had to laugh, and I think I just put "Good morning, gents. Pick your poison" this morning. I guess it is. Give us your thoughts on Rabiot or Bentancur. Who would you choose if it was between the 2? In staying or going? And I want to ask everybody that's joining us live right now to send your messages and comments in here on the live chat and let us know if you had to pick one, who you choose to stay and why. Lewis, go ahead.
Mine's pretty easy. It's Bentancur for me. I think that there's a couple reasons. Starting first off, financially, Rabiot has never proved to be a starter, and he makes $7 million a year. He's on 7 million, which is like our 5th highest earner. So you can't come off the bench and be the 5th highest earner. That's just, for me, you can't do that. Second of all, Bentancur, we've seen Bentancur play very well. Like we saw that last year. We saw him in the 3 play pretty decent. And I think that, with Rabiot, there's never been a clear, hey, I'm the 3rd midfielder here. Like sometimes he shows up and he plays really well, usually when he comes off the bench, but most of the time it's directionless. And I mean, for me, I can't really even tell you what it is that Rabiot does very well. I've watched him for years now. He's soured on me. And I think also too, if you're looking at market value, there's Rabiot probably has a better market, I think, than Bentancur does.
Yeah. So this isn't as easy as it should be for me. Financially, Bentancur. On the pitch, though, Rabiot for me. He can be physically imposing. He's got long, great strides. When he gets involved, like he can do very, very well. It's just I don't think the brain is there. Like I don't think the mind is there. You know, Bentancur, I think could be a solid Mitsala, but are we going to play that way? You know, and the other thing is too, we've seen him still give you consistency issues even at that Mitsala role. And this dates back to Allegri days. I don't know. Rabiot's apparently on the juice, so we can't have guys like that around also.
Well, by the way, that's another reason. Reason number 4 to sell Rabiot is apparently he can't even take steroids right because he does not look like he's on steroids.
I had to laugh. For those of you that haven't caught it, apparently he was asked about steroids or whatnot, and I'm like, man, is he a picture of somebody that juices? Like, I don't know. He's strong at times, but for a guy his size, he gets muscled off the ball too easily by guys a lot smaller. But I don't know between the two. I don't think it's so clear cut. At the bottom, at the end of the day, maybe the financials do take over because in terms of how much more one of those guys gives you compared to the other, it's not a huge gap.
Yeah.
So even if I say I might prefer Rabiot, it's not like, oh yeah, Rabiot on the pitch is like way better than Ben. It's still pretty close. So in terms of the financials, if you're taking a move, Rabiot came in on free. He gives you more too on a plus Valenza. In terms of salaries, Bentancur probably gives you as much as what you pay for. Mm-hmm. Does Rabiot give you as much as what you pay for? Probably not. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Bentancur also gives you a lot more errors. I will say that.
True.
He gives you a lot more errors.
The hard thing is Bentancur is like 23, 24, right?
23, yeah.
Yeah, so there's still a little bit of room there. I mean, yes, Rabiot's still kind of young as well, so I can't really use that as a key.
The other thing, I guess, is Bentancur makes a lot of errors in a spot we don't think he should be in.
Yeah, I was about to say that, like, I feel like Bentancur is asked to do a job that he's not very good at. You could also probably make the point that Rabiot's probably not used to his best. Rabiot likes to get to the box a little bit more. So, I guess it depends on the system and, like, what they want to play.
Yeah. That's a tough one. So, I guess, gun to your head, you're going Benta. Gun to my head, I'd probably go with Bentancur as well for staying. The Scudetto, journey back. I know we want to talk about this. We've got one other fun little topic that we'll touch on to finish up. That's going to involve everybody that's joining us on this live as well. But the Scudetto, getting back there and whatnot. And just this run in general, just, a lot of emotions running through Juventini right now, a lot of thoughts. I've seen some Juventini, start saying that, no, the time to celebrate 9 in a row was last year. We're not celebrating now that it's over. But that's wrong to me because it didn't actually end until now mathematically. Why would you celebrate something being over when it's not actually over?
Yeah.
And even if we felt like that earlier on in this season, still it would have been at this point in the season where you start to reminisce and look back. And I never take anything for granted. And honestly, I will say this easily, and some people said I was being pessimistic about it, but I do not think we will see a 9-time straight Scudetto winner. Definitely not in my remaining days.
Yeah.
I would say that. But your thoughts, Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, the 9 straight Scudetto, it should be celebrated. It's officially over. I mean, listen, like I said before, this Scudetto was Juventus's to lose, and we lost it this year. So I think that 9 times in a row, you'll never see it. You'll never see it the way that it happened either. I mean, you're talking about a club that was literally written off, sent to Serie B, came back, had a banter era for 5 years, looked like it was never going to come back, and then win 9 titles in a row and just completely flip the balance in Serie A. You're looking at certain players like Giorgio Chiellini's whole career, like made up through those 9 Scudettos. Buffon, his prime to the end. I think it's like Lorenzo says, like you should celebrate it. It's emotional. It's for a lot of people. I think this is another thing for a lot of people. This is some fans started watching like right around the banter era. Like this is their first taste of it. The 9 straight was my first taste of us winning. I never saw us win anything our first couple of years as a fan. So I think that, people who say that, I think were a lot of people who probably figured we weren't going to win the league this year because Pirlo was the coach. They weren't happy about certain things. And they're just being pessimistic. But I think that, you should celebrate the 9 because the 9 reinvigorates the challenge for next year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never been more fired up for a start of another Serie A season than I am for next year. And I have no idea what's going to happen this summer. It could be a dumpster fire. But seeing all that, like it made me more hungry for the Scudetto again. And I love winning the Scudetto. Like I've said that for years. That's my favorite trophy. But now I'm more hungry for it. Like I want it back. Yeah. So
being a fan for as long as I have, I mean, I've seen some incredible Juve sides that never won the Scudetto. You know, to win 9 in a row, and for some to be saying, "Don't celebrate now." You celebrated it last year. No, like this is something remarkable that people will be talking about forever. It's etched in history, in footballing history. 9 straight Serie A titles to Juventus. If we were going to have that attitude, what's the point in creating stars at the stadium for players?
Yeah.
What's the point of doing specials on Netflix for Roberto? But what's the point? It's to celebrate these things, like these feats, these things. Like it's a shame to not celebrate them and not appreciate what has happened. Yeah. And I'm not buying that for a second. And the ones that are saying that, that's fine if you feel that way. Don't tell other Juventini how to act. It makes me laugh. It's like, who are you to tell other Juventini? No, you shouldn't be celebrating that. We celebrated it last year. It's a weak mentality. It's not a weak mentality.
Yeah, it's appreciation for a moment that just officially ended.
It's mathematically come to an end, and it is what it is. And AJ, the funny thing is, he says some people say when Al actually mainly means me. No, I actually don't. I had a lot of comments on my post when I put an appreciative post over the past 9 years, and I was seeing a lot of comments, and I got a few DMs actually saying, "Why are you celebrating? Like that's weak. Like we need to be thinking about getting back." I don't see it as being weak, honestly. Again, it's something I never thought I would see, and we're wrapping our heads around it coming to the end, and also it's absolutely fucking exhausting to be disappointed all the time. Like it just really is. Let people have the joy of celebrating what just took place now that it's ended. And, there's nothing wrong with looking back and honestly, it feels like a blur. It's been 9 years, and when you're there and it's happening, it's win season to season, and it's just rolling along. Taking the time to just stop and look back and be like, wow, man, what a moment. Even when we're reminiscing about old moments, old games, and you start thinking, you're like, oh man, where was I at that time? That was amazing. It was incredible. It's great to look back on these things, and sometimes in the social media hustle and all this, and even just watching games while you're on Twitter or whatnot, you start to lose that. You start to lose that why you were watching in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, but to look back, no, it's absolutely incredible. We're going to actually have a great special on the streak, and we're going to do it season by season, and it's going to be really, really good times, and we're going to reminisce, and it's going to be good. And for those of those fans that don't want to, that's fine. Don't reminisce. It's fine. But we're going to do it because it was special, and there was a lot of great memories, and ones that I hold dear to my heart. Some where I was actually even there as well, which is big. So we got to do that. Absolutely have to. I want to address this question from Matt. Did you congratulate Merda? He asks. So I've got family members who support Merda in Italy. And yes, I've been getting the gears. But you know what? I've been dishing it out for so long that you know what? It was bound to happen. It's all good. Did I congratulate them? No. Anybody that supports Merida that I've spoken to have said the exact same thing. And everybody wants to I've seen all the huff and commotion about Juve's account and Agnelli congratulating them. I said the same thing to all. Enjoy it. It's going to come back to us. We're going to be taking it back, Just our trophy case ran out of space. We just got to renovate, and then we'll take it back once we got the space. They have a lot of room in theirs.
Listen, it's all doom and gloom right now, but the way back, not as large as people think. We dropped a lot of points to bad teams this year.
Yeah.
And Murda's financial situation arguably could be worse than ours. They might have to cut a lot of veterans and call up a lot of young players. We all know Antonio Conte doesn't like that. So let's see. They can enjoy it now, but if we address our issues, it's not, get a stable manager in there. It's not the end of the world. This isn't the banter era 2.0.
Get some stability. Let's start minimizing the amount of mistakes next season. Start getting those points back. It's not that far. It's not like we're miles away. We're there. It's not going to be that hard to turn around. But in terms of congratulating, no. Was I upset with the accounts? It's what I expected, to be honest. Did Merida congratulate you? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. In terms of Agnelli, one thing I will say is that completely different people. Like Steven Zhang had nothing to do with 2006. Completely different ownership, completely different group of people, all in leadership roles and whatnot. And honestly, like Zhang was one of the few that stood by his side throughout this past little mess. So they do have a decent, relationship between the two, but it's what I expected. In terms of me, will I be doing it? No, I won't congratulate them. I just won't. It's just not genuine, and it's not true to the rivalry for me too.
Yeah, I did take the sack out of the admin just for the sake of it because they've made me so mad this year. But no.
I will say though, once the true celebrations begin, I might take a little bit of a break off Twitter. I don't know if I can really stomach it. That'll be one thing. But maybe there won't be much of a celebration because they all went nuts in Milan there. And apparently the pandemic took a break, took a night off in Milan there. Geniuses. Jesus. We're going to wrap up on something fun, and I want to get everybody's in here. And it's best 11 of the 9-year run. And Lewis, get you to kick us off with your best 11.
Okay. In goal, we have Buffon. Back line, Chiellini, left back, Barzagli, center back, Bonucci, center back, Lichtsteiner, right back. Midfield, I mean, that speaks for itself. It's Pirlo, Vidal, Marquisio, Pogba. And up front, it's Tevez and I'm going to say CR.
There you go.
No disrespect to Paulo Dybala, by the way. Don't hate me.
I got Buffon in goal. Chiellini and Barzagli as center backs. Lichtsteiner, without a doubt, right back for me. Left back, I went Patrice Evra because I loved him when he was with us.
Yeah.
Thought he was solid. God damn, I just wish he would have cleared that fucking ball. But he was fantastic. In the middle, it was tough, man, but Pirlo for sure. Marquisio, Vidal. I was humming and hawing about who I put behind my two forwards because I go with Tevez and CR7. And I put Dybala over Pogba just in behind them. And it was really, really hard, one or the other, because I could have just went with the 4 in the middle. But I went with Dybala, Tevez, CR7, Marquisio, Pirlo, and Vidal. And even picking Marquisio above Pogba, but Marquisio was just fucking class. Pogba had so many bangers. It was hard. It's a hard best 11, but it's really fun to see everybody's best 11 of the past 9 years. I've seen quite the variation stuff, and it's cool. It's cool to reminisce and look back and even thinking about these guys, man. Lichtsteiner, I fucking miss that guy, man.
Yeah,
I actually really, really do. He was unreal. Let's see, Yukio's here. Buffon, the BBC, Evra, Marquisio, Pogba, Vidal, Pirlo, CR7, and Higuain. There you go. A little bit of variation there too. Getting Bibita in there. There you go. Yeah, I mean, for me, Tevez caught me off guard, man. Because honestly, I had some bad feelings about Tevez.
Yeah.
And just attitude and whatnot. He was given the 10, and I remember the uproar.
Yeah.
The guy was an absolute beast. An absolute killer. Absolute killer.
One could argue that those were the best 2 seasons numbers-wise of his entire career.
Yeah.
He was so dominant in that second season. It was unreal.
Yeah. We got Lorenzo's coming in with Buffon, Evra, the BBC, Lichtsteiner, Pogba, Pirlo, Vidal, CR7, Dybala. Wow, that's solid too. Going with the 3-5-2 there. Evra, Lichtsteiner on the wing backs. Solid. I love seeing those, man. Love seeing those. But yeah. We're gonna have some fun. We're going to be going through the seasons where team members from the All Juvecast team will be breaking down certain seasons. And of course, the pods are always open to anybody. So if it's a project you seem interested in, like you want to tackle one of those seasons, maybe one of them was your favorite in particular, like the very first one, the 2011-12 where Del Piero lifted it before saying, see you later to all of us, maybe it was 2014-15 with arguably one of the best Juve sides ever. Maybe that one was the one that you want to touch on. Just reach out to us. We're going to be having fun with that, doing a recap show where we break down seasons. So, as far as this, of course, we'll be back with the next match. It's a big one. Got to get top 4. And we're going to be facing Milan, and that's going to be on May 9th. And, Rodrigo De Paul did us a favor. Maybe Donnarumma going to do us a favor for his future team. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he lets a soft one by, who knows? Apparently the offer's out there. 10 million euros. Raiola's saying that. Whether or not Juve has actually put it through, I don't know. Still remains in question. Before we sign off, everybody put your thoughts in on Donnarumma. Yes or no? And Lewis, that's my final question to you. Donnarumma, yes or no?
Hell yes. This is not even a question. It's yes. I've seen people say no to this for a week now. get your head checked. He's 22 years old. You need to keep it for the next 10 years. It's a yes for me.
It's a yes for me too. Donnarumma, if you got him on a free,
yeah,
bring him in. Bring him in. But we absolutely have to figure out losing Chesney there. And yeah, everybody. Lorenzo, yes, from Matt Milana, yes. Lorenzo, sign, no brainer. Yukio, see, that's it. I'm shocked to see a lot saying no. Quite a few. I can't wrap my head around that one. We got to bring Donnarumma if you get an opportunity on a free. That's just massive. Ace, let's do it. That'll be an interesting story to follow on. Guys, May 9th, Juve, AC Milan. It's going to be a big one. We will be doing a pre-match for that one. Make sure you join us. We're going to recap some old school Juve Milan matches too. Have some fun, have a little bit of trivia, and get ready for this one. And hopefully have a good game to enjoy. One that's a much, much better performance than we just saw against Udinese. Thanks again, everybody who tuned in live, took part in this discussion. Please, everybody like the video, subscribe to the channel. It all helps. Remember to check out Striped Hearts Apparel as well. And thank you as always to Lewis, who's been an absolute pleasure always having you on, brother. Always good times. Thanks, man. I know it's super late there, past midnight there, but as always, man, much appreciated. Everybody, enjoy your weeks. We'll chat before Milan. As always, no matter what, Forza Juve, fino alla fine. Ciao.